What is going on, people? How's everybody doing today? It is your host, King Nappy. I am here with episode 7 of the Regal 30 podcast. I wanted to talk a little bit about, and we've covered this before. This isn't, this won't be our first time talking about this. I want to talk about this coronavirus that's been taking over news as the past a couple months, maybe even more. Oh, I needed that. That was some good coffee. I was noticing, I went to Walmart yesterday. Of course, the grocery stores are hectic. Everybody's, I don't want to say necessarily in a panic. I think everybody's just planning and being smart. But the grocery store was just packed. People were in there by the clusters, buying up milk, cheese, and bread, and canned goods, water. It was surprising me that there was still water left. Well, not really, because they put a cap on how much you could buy yesterday. I think for the cases, I'm actually getting ready to leave here in a little bit and go and pick up some more water myself and some cleaning supplies. But they have put a cap on the cases. You can get 2 cases per person, or I'm guessing per family if you all came in there together. I'm not sure how it works. I should have just had my wife go behind me in a separate basket and had her get 2 extra cases. But they didn't have, I don't think they had a cap on the water jugs, the gallon jugs. And I don't know what's the situation for the 5 gallon jugs. I don't know what they have so far as limitations on that, if there is any. I know they had a water dispenser in there for like $157. I should have went ahead and got that. It's the little electric water dispenser, and you just put the put the little 5 gallon in. I think on top or either at the bottom, depending on how it's made, and you're good to go for at least 5 gallons. It was packed. It was annoying, and I've been in Walmart before, and it's been packed like that. But it was just annoying. Everybody, just the way that they were shopping, everybody was kind of like confused as to what they wanted to buy. So they were just in the aisle, just kind of like in the way and looking around. And me, I'm the kind of shopper where I know what I want. I'm not one of those guys that, you know, hate shopping. I never understood that. Never understood that. I might talk about that one day. Like, guys who hate shopping. Like, why is that? What is that about? But I'm actually one of those guys that like to shop. Like, that doesn't bother me at all. But at least when I am in the store, I know what I want and I'm heading straight to those items or whatever. And I may browse around a little bit. But yeah, there were a lot of people in there who was just confused and kind of in the way, didn't know what they wanted for real, and was sort of trying to gauge where they wanted to go and where they wanted to be in the store. And that got really annoying for me, like real quick. I hate having to like speed around everybody. Like I did Instacart at one point, and I was just noticing like I know the layout of the store, so I'm like flying through the store. So people would just be in the way. And I think that's what was irritating me about yesterday. But just seeing just like the surplus of things just missing. Toilet paper was out. Just out. Just no toilet paper. It was so bare you could see clean into the back of the warehouse so far as toilet paper. Which makes sense. Um but it was just completely out. But it's not like that for every store. And I'm guessing Walmart was one of the go-to stores, or maybe they limited their shipment, out of I don't know. I have no clue. I just know that they were just super bare. There were no there was not one roll of toilet tissue in the entire store. And it was confusing because my thought process is prepare for that. You know what I mean? if you know that there's going to be a high demand for that, prepare for it. You know, that's just money. That's just money coming to your pocket. You know what I mean? I don't know if there was just an overall shortage, and I believe that's what it was, just an overall shortage on supplies altogether. So limited orders, or maybe certain stores and retailers are limited per how much they can order and things like that. So I totally get and understand that. I was talking to my wife on the way home, and she has the mindset of, you know what? I think everybody's just kind of overreacting to this thing. You know, it isn't really as serious as everybody's making it seem. Everybody's panicking and running to stores and buying up things and buying up water and toilet tissue and alcohol, and weren't nobody buying this stuff before. People just panicking. And I told her, I said, I disagree. I think there's a level of, I think some this sort of preparation should have been going on over time, gradually and consistently. Honestly, it was a bit of a wake up call for me as well. Like, I always knew that, hey, you need to start preparing for whatever. You never know what'll happen. You never know when you may get iced in, snowed in. You never know when there's some sort of weird martial law that may hit. You never know what will happen just on a day to day basis. You never know if your car goes down, or something goes wrong with public transportation and you can't get around, or you never know. So it's good to have some essentials that can get you by. Um, Setting up an emergency food supply, setting up an emergency, like I said, toiletry supply, paper towels, or probably not paper towels. You know, I think you can go without that, but at least toilet tissue. You know, things like that. Um, just setting up those small things, setting up a small, a water supply. Even you don't do anything but just have maybe a good 10 or 20 cases for, for a quick emergency, a small emergency, a small mishap. Something like that is smart to have and wise to have. Um so that way when something like this happens, you don't have to run to the store and buy up a whole bunch of things. You have a adequate supply on hand already. You may go and want to grab a few things to add to it, maybe a few little items. You may want to grab some newer candles, if some old ones you picked up, some candles. That's another thing I forgot to mention. Candles, maybe a few lighters, um, just simple things like that that could stretch out a worst case scenario. I don't say worst case, but a bad case scenario of being quarantined, and stuck in your home, or not able to get to the store, or stores are out, kind of thing. I told her, I said, I don't think it's necessarily a level of panic. I think it's more so people just planning. They see what's ahead, whether it's late planning, whether it's, they planned early. But I think it's just a sense of planning and saying, you know what, things could get out of hand. I'm looking at other neighbors that may be close by, maybe in a near city, maybe in another state that's dealing with the same issue. I see how close to home it's getting. I see different businesses and corporations in my own neighborhood all of a sudden establishing new safety guidelines and new procedures and new code of conduct for this particular event. Maybe it would be smart for me to go ahead and get this just in case. A lot of times, certain events will happen, and it seems so far away from us. It seems like something that isn't going to necessarily affect us or bother us, and we never know. You never know when it's going to actually come to your doorstep and directly affect you. You may not even catch anything, but just someone else having it, or someone else being affected nearby, or a corporate business nearby, or whatever the case, maybe even your job. It can directly affect you. This thing started from what the reports are saying in China, and from people traveling and tourists and people transporting back and forth in and out of the US. you know it's created a lot of confusion. It's created a lot of turmoil to a degree. I think Trump just released a statement uh halting all travel from Europe to the US, and I believe from the US to Europe as well, if I'm not mistaken. I gotta double check that article and make sure, but from what I read, that's what I remember. And my wife was just, she was just saying, and I heard a few other people as well. They were saying just, it's not as a big deal as everyone's making it out to be. I think everybody's blowing this out of proportion. And I told him, I said, well, you know what, this just right now, in comparison to flu seasons that we've had, this is a little different. We've had flu seasons and we've had some bad bugs going around, some bad viruses. We've had, the years when we dealt with the H1s, H1N1, and the Zika virus was going around for a while, and dealing with bad stomach viruses that was traveling around for a while, and putting people out of work for about a couple weeks. Um, we've had our share of little flare ups of viruses and things that's gonna come and try to you know harm your immune system and affect other people that are close around you. But this one is just this one is just a tad different. I mean, just the way it overall feels, just the way it's being handled. The person who's the leader of our country at the moment, is just his methods are a bit unorthodox. So the way he handles things is different, than than previous, and it's just a different feeling out here. So you just, even though the scenarios may even be similar to other scenarios that we've faced, you gotta admit that when you walk outside and just see what's happening and you read the news and you just seeing what's going on, that it is a different feel out here. It's just a different time that we're in, and we can't afford to write anything off. That's just something that we just don't have the funds to do. We can't afford to write off anything. Not saying buy into everything that you see, every story you read. Someone told me, I don't watch the news. It's too depressing. I don't watch the news. There's always someone dying or someone's getting killed or something tragic happening. And I said, yeah, but you got to realize that that's real life that the news is reporting. The news isn't reporting something that isn't happening. You know what I mean? It's reporting some real life stuff. People get killed. That's real life. Police officers shooting me, young black men or something like that. That's real. That's a real life event. Little kids being shot over in St. Louis. People steady dropping dead from gun violence over in Chicago. That is real life, and that's what the news reports most often. And things that's happening overseas and internationally, there's usually a bunch of feuds and disagreements and wars and military bravado and you know threats of nuclear this and nuclear that. That's real life. These are things that are happening in real life, and we can't put our head in the sand about it. One of the things that I do is I listen to the news articles, I'll read some of them, and I don't look at it for the details. I look at it to sort of measure and weigh the overall general direction that our country and other countries are heading in. That's the main reason that I look at the news, to see what general direction is the country heading towards. Yeah, I wouldn't follow the news for detailed play by play details because, yeah, they can fabricate all that. And that's stuff I don't pay attention to. But for the overall general direction, just seeing overall what they're doing and in general how they're handling things and what direction we're moving towards as a whole, as a country, as a nation. That's what I watch. That's what I pay attention to. And it's just important to know that this particular time and era that we're in is just different. It's just entirely different. The presidential campaign feels different. We've had presidential campaigns and debates and nominations and things like that, and different candidates show up, and this one is just, it just feels different. You can't even really put your finger on as to why, but you just really can't deny that it does, and that's where I am at. This whole Corona thing, to me, is just different. It's just what it could potentially do is mainly what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a lot of businesses who are adjusting their vacation pay and sick time policy and paid leave and leave of absence policies. A lot of companies are adjusting them, and they used to grade people, or not grade, but sort of get you into a point system. If you had more than 3 points, some jobs were, written warning, or a written, reprimand, or something like that. You get three of those, you're terminated. Most jobs will kind of run along those guidelines. But jobs are excusing it. And I just like, we'll rather lose you than to lose 8 or 9 employees because they've been in contact with you. We rather lose you than to lose the head director of this particular office or something like that because he shook your hand, or you guys been in contact, or you were in the break room together. We'd rather do that than to lose dang near 50% of our production team at this warehouse because you're a team leader and you've been working around all the machinery and working around all the materials and how everybody else working around it. Companies are just not in, they're just not in the mood for it. And they're not even taking that risk. They're not taking that financial risk at all. And so they're just like, you know what, if you need to go home, just go home. I know Instacart and like companies like Shipt and DoorDash, Uber, they've been sending out emails to all of their workers, all of their employees, letting them know like, hey, if there's a safer way to carry out your job, take that route. If you don't feel safe about doing this job, don't take the job, don't accept it. Call in, let us know. If you don't feel safe about going on customers' property, see if they can improvise with you and set up a different arrangement. They want to cut down on as much physical contact as possible. And it's just, these are big adjustments to make. But companies are just not, they are just not in the mood to take that risk. And I understand it. That's a sense of being wise and planning, not panic. Panic to me is different. When you lose your mind and you are no longer thinking rationally, you're no longer thinking clear with a clear head, and the decisions you make are peculiar and they lack sense and lack logic, that to me would classify as a panic. But logically, a person is thinking correctly. Hey, there's a chance that we could be affected by this virus, that a quarantine could happen, whether it's small or on a larger scale, whether it's isolated or whether it's something that kind of covers everyone. There's ways that this could affect me, in later on in the market, where I won't be able to go out to a grocery store and purchase anything. And if I am able to go out, there may not be anything left. There's a surplus of people in this neighborhood or in this city, and they're all wanting to do the same thing, which is to be able to be comfortable and survive whatever is to come. Planning for the worst case scenario instead of just writing it off and assuming. You know what I mean? I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was telling him like, preparation, that's smart. It's a smart thing to do. You just don't want to find yourself on the short end of that. I was at church recently last Sunday. First lady of the church, she was giving different analogies, and she went to the Bible and talked about I believe it's 10 virgins. Said 10 of them, they all had lamps or lantern, like oil lamps, oil lanterns. and they were given instructions to go somewhere and wait for someone to meet them there. The time appointed for that person to meet them there wasn't given. From what I remember, I'm paraphrasing, but I don't remember if it was a time frame or not, but I want to say it wasn't. So the 5 of them were wise and the other 5 were not. 5 went and bought or gathered extra oil ahead of time, but they gathered extra oil per instruction. They were told to. The reason they were told was, like I said, because there wasn't really a time frame. They didn't know the day nor the hour where this person will return, and they wanted to be ready and have everything that they needed when that person returned. So in order to do that, they had to make sure they had a ample supply of oil so that they could be able to see. I'm guessing it had to be nighttime, and they wanted to be able to see adequately, see where they were going, see where they were at, and what's going on. The other 5 did not prepare. They assumed that everybody would, I guess, take care of them. That everybody else would have enough, and they can borrow some of theirs. And that wasn't the case. Things happened, and their oil burned out, and they ran out of resource, and they had to go to those who had it in order to be able to survive or endure wherever it is they were enduring. And it just goes to show you, you got to plan and prepare. You don't want to be the one on the short end of that saying, man, I wish I would have gotten this, or I should have got some more of that, or, you're not going to be able to perfectly plan. There's always going to be some sort of kink in a plan or some sort of mishap or hiccup. But generally, there's some things that you can knock out and get done and take care of that are small and that's minute, such as water and toiletries and a small canned good supply. Having maybe some bandages and candles just in case there's an electric, outage in electricity or power. Realizing, there. I know some guys that got like solar panels, set up in case of power outages and stuff like that. They can still in a small scale power some essential items that they may have. That's smart preparation, and that's not a panic. I don't think it's an overreaction, but I'm interested in seeing what everybody else thinks. Leave some comments down below in the comment section. Definitely let me know what your thoughts are. This is the Regal 30 podcast. I will catch you guys later. This is King Nappy. Peace.